driven app, and we have a portal. So I mentioned earlier that the Canvas app, it's something you can tell it's a canvas. It's just empty. You design from scratch. You build all the processes, all the flows, all the configurations yourself. It's basically you creating an application for yourself with little or no coding. Actually, you do some coding, some level of little coding, some Excel kind of coding, anyways. Whereas the model-driven apps, those ones they already exist in some form for you. They exist in some form for you. The biggest of them, the most popular of them is Dynamics, actually. I think Dynamics is the most popular right now. So Dynamics CRM or Dynamics 365 is actually an example of a model-driven app. I don't know if that answers your question.
Okay, so what does model mean?
So model-driven app means that there are some level of pre-configurations done for you. Okay, for example, let me see if I can just say. So there are some level of pre-configurations done for you, and then you just have to do the rest. I'm not sure I'm allowed to create anything. So basically, the idea is some level of pre-configurations are done for you. You just have to do the rest. So when you think of Dynamics 365, you know something exists, but you have to configure it to meet your organization requirements. I don't know if that makes sense. Does that make sense to you? It's not like the Canvas app that is just plain. The model-driven app, something already exists. What you have to do is to configure it to meet organization requirements.
So we're talking about data model, like a relational database?
Data model, I'm not sure I know. Data model. Where did you see data model?
Model. When I think about model, I'm thinking about a relational database model, like.
Okay, so let's see if we can understand it that way. So think of it this way: there's something called the Common Data Service, which is now called Dataverse. This is now called a Dataverse database. So basically, the the Dynamics CRM is connected to the Common Data Service or the Dataverse database, basically. So it's feeding off the database. So it's almost like the database has been created, and your application is connected to that database. And some business rules have been set on that Common Data Service that influences your application. So the business rules on your Common Data Service, which is your database, influences your application. Does that make sense to you? Also, another thing is, some user interface has been done already. A large level of user experience and user interface has been done already. The front end has been built. A large part of the back end has been built. You just have to configure it to meet your requirements. So, okay, let me put it this way. So, software development, involve the front end and the back end majorly, right? Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct.
So when you work with the Canvas application, there is no front end, there is no back end. Do you understand? There is no front end, there is no back end with the Canvas application. But with the model-driven application, there is a back end already, and there is a front end already. The user interface and the user experience has been built. The connections to your database, and the business rules involved and all the logics have also been built, which is the backend, right? So now all you have to do as a developer for CRM is to configure it to meet organization requirements. So
mind if I comment real quick?
Yes, please do.
This is Jim. So one way to think about it is back in the old days, whenever Dynamics first came out, before it evolved into what's called Common Data Service and Dataverse, is they built a product on top of SQL Server, right? And what they had was they had some tools that allowed you to define your own data tables, your own fields, and all the relations between. So that's where we talk about Common Data Service, Dataverse. It's a facade on top of your underlying data services. So when you design a database, you're going to design your tables, you're going to design your fields, your relations. So you're designing a relational database under the hood, and there's some layers in between there. Where the model-driven app comes in is it's a way of collecting all the pieces associated with your common data service database, including front-end components. There's a designer tool for building your data entry forms. You can design they have certain flows you can put behind the scenes, like a business process flow. So it's a way of a model-driven app as a collection of components coming from your database built in the common data service. And a Canvas app is just another method of serving up that data. A Canvas app can be connected to the backend through common data service. You can connect it to Excel, or it could be completely standalone. So they're two different ways. And the phrase they use with Canvas apps is it's pixel perfect, right? And it's an evolution of, if you ever work with InfoPath, I believe it's actually an evolution of the InfoPath engine for doing front end stuff. Does that make sense?
Spot on. That was spot on. I don't know if you understand, Philip, but that was spot on. Is there anything you'd like us to add? But I think the central answer to your question is Dynamics 365 is an example of a model-driven app.
Exactly. Think of Dynamics as a product for customer service or sales or field service. I think that question built on common data service, and the front end is designed as a configured model-driven app. There's a lot more to it. That's the part that's hard to talk about, is there's so much going on under the scenes, but that's one way to approach it. So Dynamics is a product. It's a third-party product. So if you hit the Dynamics page, you might have already had a license for Dynamics. So you might have had CRM installed, or sales, or some other marketing. It's another product, and they're tied together. That's why it's a bit confusing. It's not it's definitely a confusing conversation until you really work with it a lot. So you might have hit the dynamic side of things because you had a license for it.
So you might have also hit the dynamic side of things because of the environment that you created your app in. Because one of the other things that I've found is it's really easy, if you have access to Dynamics, to end up in in a different environment, which has the Dynamics apps in it versus your Canvas apps, where you're just doing PowerApps.
Oh, that's spot on. That's correct.
Good point. Yeah, environments add another level of confusion to things.
Okay, so I've been switching around environments anyways. So I'll just show you a quick one on I built on one app last year, I think about 10 months ago. So I'll just run you through. It was a basic COVID app. And this was right in the beginning, I think, of February or March last year. So it was meant to be used indoor, So what we had here was an application that could, so this is a Canvas app, by the way. So it's actually meant for the bank. I mentioned I work in a bank. So we had something simple like this. So excuse my I'm not a proper UI UX person. So excuse whatever I did wrong in terms of user interface or user experience. I'm sorry about that. So basically, what it does is we have three things. You can do some level of self-tests. We also have a dashboard that shows the COVID-19 situation in Nigeria, and then we have a myth debunker. So in the beginning, sometimes last year, there were a lot of myths going on about about drinking or different myths in Nigeria. I don't know if it's something all around the world. I know some of it was actually all around the world. There was some about the sun. Say if you stay in the sun long enough, you wouldn't have COVID, or if you drink hot water enough, a couple of stuff. So we have the myth debunker also. So I'll just start with the self-test. So if you click on the self-test, so it's something like, do you have a cough? So this is actually a very simple application. It's just making use of some conditional statements. There are just a couple of conditional statements behind this simple application I've designed here. So this is an example of, do you have cough? You say yes or no. I say yes. You have cold? You say Do you have the area? Say yes. Sore throats. Just these were just some common symptoms of COVID-19 as at that time. As at last year. Do you have backache? Say yes. You have headache? Say no. Are you running temperature? You say no. Basic stuff. I'll just run through it. Are you feeling fatigued? Say yes. So, there was a question about, have you recently had a trip to any of the countries that had serious COVID-19 issues? As you know, Africa has actually been quite lucky, I'd say, with the COVID-19 issue. And I'm grateful because I'm not sure how we could have handled it. I'm not sure anybody is handling it well enough. It's really sad, but it's really sad. So one of the criteria for testing back in the days was they'd like to know where you've been in the last 14 days, if you've traveled outside the country. So say, do you have a direct contact or taking care of a positive COVID-19 patient or something? So basically what it does is, it takes some conditions, it's, does some calculations based on your answers, then it gives you a level of advice. So based on the answers I've chosen, it's asking me to consult a doctor. So if I've chosen something less, say for example, I'm not running, I didn't have any problem at all. I'll say I just have a sore throat and body ache, but nothing else. So it's probably going to be, this may be stress related. Please take some time to rest. I'm not sure. I hope you understand what, I know it's basic, but that's an example of a Canvas app. Does anybody have any question, or is there anything I have to explain?
How would you share this app with us? Like if you wanna, this app seems like general purpose that we can use in our own companies.
Okay. I don't have a problem sharing it. I never use it anyways. So okay, I'm not okay. I can just I hope I can download the solution and I can share the solution with you guys. I can also share the codes. No, that's not a problem. So I'll probably contact Fan. I will share with Selfan, and I'm sure he has everybody's email and he can just share it to everybody. No, that's not a problem.
Sometimes banks don't want to share everything you build. So
Hello?
I don't know for you.
I'm not sure I understand. Hello. Okay, so another part of the application is the dashboard. So if you click on the dashboard, it basically takes you to a Power BI report that has been done separately. So what happened here is, okay, so this does not connect anymore because it's been forever. Okay, I've not opened this in forever. So what happens here is, there are ways to integrate different aspects of the Power Platforms together. So what we try to do here is to integrate the PowerApps with the Power BI. So first we created an application on a dashboard, a COVID-related dashboard on Power BI. Then we connected the dashboard to our PowerApps. We placed this in our PowerApps. So let me see if I can find the dashboard. Oh, did I delete it? Oh, okay. Oh, now I know what happened. I deleted the dashboard. Okay, okay, see. Yeah, okay, so this is old reports. So I built a Power BI report. Simple, it's quite simple actually. It's just telling us the confirmed cases we had, the number of people discharged, the number of deaths, active cases, death percentage, recovery percentage, and then the confirmed cases across the country. It was something this simple, and then we infused this into PowerApps. Okay. How do I move this around? Okay. So we basically just infuse this into PowerApps, and how you do that is for anybody that has any form of development experience. So there's something called an iframe. So you basically create an iframe in your Power Apps, and you place your Power BI there. So iframes is like a container that accepts you placing another development inside. So you can place your agents inside also. If you want to have a bot that replies people, so an iframe is an example of what you would use to keep your bots or your Power BI. So that's what we did here. We just infused this dashboard into this. And then we also have the meet debunker. So our meet debunker, like I mentioned. So exposing yourself to the sun, eating ginger doesn't prevent contraction of coronavirus. So we had a couple. So maybe when I share the application, you can go through it. There are lots. So that's basically an example of what you can do with Power Apps. It's actually a very simple example. Power Apps can do a lot more complicated and stuff, but this is very simple. And for this, there's no there's no database for this. This is not connected to any database. It's just purely running on some calculations, purely calculations. I can show you. Let me see if I can show you some of the calculations we did here. So purely logic. So what I'm about to open is a studio. I call it a studio. So this is where you cook it. This is where you create your app, your Canvas app. This is where you put things together in your Canvas app. Is there an on-prem version of D365 which gives you some of these capacities or capabilities, but it's restricted? Okay, there's an on-prem. Yes, that's correct. Yes, there is an on-prem, but I think in the last 2 years, Microsoft has been trying to move everything to the cloud. That's why they had to change all their certifications. Everything is now Azure. They try to move everything online right now. So everything's basically online these days. For a lot of Dynamics 365 is still on-prem, but everybody is starting to see why they should go to the cloud. So I think that's what the future is. Okay, so if you look at this, so the way application works on the way you build this application is simple. You set commands. So for example, I created a button here. Then you set a command that says set call to be 0. So when somebody click on this button, set call to be 0. Then navigate to this particular page, and the transition should be fade. So basically, if you worked with PowerPoint before, you know what fade does. It basically fades into the next page. So yeah, I'm telling it where to navigate to. When I click on this, navigate to this particular page. So what you see is when I call this the cuff ST, that means I have a screen here called the cuff ST, which is this. This is the cuff ST. Also, you see something like this. You know, we have a yes or no. If someone were to select one of this, if someone were to select this, this will be the condition running behind. So we have a simple condition that says, if for this radio cuff, if the value is yes, if you select yes, set a score of +1 for the person. After this, then reset this cuff radio back to default. Because if you do not reset, when you come back the next time, you know, you keep having that one. So you have to reset it. Then when that is done, navigate back to this page. You know, so these are simple. If you look at this code, it might look a bit complicated right now, but it's actually simple. It looks quite like what you have on Excel. The kind of code, the kind of if condition you'd write on Excel, basically. So those are the kind of conditions you write. And this is how you write it. So you have something here called fill. You have it on click or a minute. So you have on select. So on select is what happens when I select this. When I click on the button, this is what happens basically. So you can change a lot of other things. You can change the fill. So this is my current fill. You can change your front. So I'm currently using the open. Sorry. So I'm currently using the open SaaS. You can change it to whatever you need to change it to Oxford or whatever you fancy, basically. No, you can change a whole lot of things here. The way it works is, you know, when you're building application on the norm, each and every of these, you write the code separately. If you're building your application, maybe it's a C# application or what have you. Okay, so for this part, this will probably be your CSS. So if you're building something with CSS, you probably write all of this one by one, line by line. But what PowerApps help you do is, you know, you don't have to write the codes. You just have to edit some stuff and you're fine, basically. So I wish you had a lot more time to go around how you use this environment. But the basic things you need to know about this environment, I'll just show you. So we have a tree view. What our tree view does is, you know, it helps us understand our screens, or should I say our pages. So every application has a certain number of page or screen that you can actually see. The number of screen you would see will also depend on what you select or what you want to do with the application. Or also the kind of rights or privileges you have on that application, as the case may be. As the case may be, you know. So that's what you do. You kind of build hierarchy with your tree view. You build the hierarchy of your screens and the components and how you want them to look. That's what you do with your tree view. So we also have the insert. The insert is where you cook up stuff. This is where you do your editing to your work. So basically, this is where you bring in, if you need to add a rectangle, a button, a label, you know, anything. This is where you insert whatever you need to insert. If you need to insert a chart, a Power BI tile, you know, anything you need to insert, basically, this is where you do it. Then we have our data. So I think one of the things you should know is our PowerApps can connect to over 270 connectors. So basically, you can connect your PowerApps to anything. You can connect it to your on-prem database. You can connect it to your Excel, anything online. You know, it doesn't really matter. I think your PowerApps can connect to almost anything, as long as you know how to go about it. So that's why we have our connectors here. So as you can see in our connectors, you know, we have a wide range. We have a lot. So if you have time, you know, you can just check it out.
10 minutes, that's too much.
We have a lot, yes. So, you know, we have media, we have some advanced tools. So as you know, Microsoft has been doing some experiments, I'd say, some artificial intelligence experiments. They've been cooking up some stuff. Some of them are perfect, some are not so perfect. So if you need to do some level of, say, sentimental analysis, some word text, different AI stuff and machine learning stuff, you can infuse that into your work with this. Of course, you have to pay extra charges for those. So basically, I think that's a simple example or overview of what you can do with your Power Apps, especially with, I think I've explained more on the what do you call it, on the Canvas application. So
Yeah, that makes sense. So you're not really connected to a model driven. This is just a Canvas app.
this is just a Canvas app. There's nothing behind it.
And
This is just like almost like building an application with just HTML and CSS and some Bootstrap.
and it's connected. It's actually connected. Is this connected to a Power BI presentation somehow? Or
Not at all. Not at all. I was just able to infuse Power BI into it.
Okay.
But it's not connected to Power BI. Sorry.
It's not connected.
So,
okay.
not at all.
But you could create a Canvas app that has parameters that are input to a Power BI presentation.
Yes, you can. So, for example, you can, for example, so you can have an Excel. Then you'd curate your Power Apps based on the Excel. So your Excel will be your Excel will be your data source for the Power Apps. Then you also build a Power BI dashboard based on that same Excel, which is the data source. But your Power App, you'd be able to fill in data. So when you fill in data, it's going to populate into your Excel and it's going to reflect on your Power BI reports. I do not know if you understand what I'm trying to say.
So maybe related to sharing this app, say you're working on a production app. This COVID service already in production, but you want to make a change. But you don't want this change to be visible to everybody. You don't only want it to be visible to us, like the new version. You only want to make that visible for a group of people in the IT, QA or whatever.
How do you go about that?
Yeah, you need to think about that.
So there's a way to create a resource group. So you can create a resource group or a group. So when you create this group, you add some selected individuals into the group. So it could be the guys that do your testing or the IT guys. So when you add them to this group, every time you do major edits on your work, that means there's a new version basically. So you can then share this new version with people in this group, in this resource group alone. So only them would have access to it. So when the testing guys, when they're done testing and you're done debugging and you're sure everything is perfect, then you can just push that into production.
Okay, that's good.
So Thomas, were you asking about an app that's already live that you want to make changes to?
Yes.
I guess we'll have to see how Mubarak handles that normally. I know we have two different versions. We have a development version and a production version that we typically use. Like a subscription, you have a product.
So that's the how do you call it? So that's what you want to do. You want to, so this, you can see what I have here is the dev environment. So what I have here is the development environment, and this is where I develop stuff. If I need to change anything, this is where I change it. So what we typically do is that you develop your stuff here. When you're done developing, you download the solution, then you move it to your UAT, which is the user acceptance testing. So this is where you're testing, guys. This is where they test. So you create a resource group on your user acceptance testing, which is only made up of people that should test the application. So until everybody is satisfied, that's when you move to the production environment. So you don't want to deploy something on the production environment and have to edit or change anything on the production environment. You know, I mean, people lose job for doing that. So if you need to improve anything, what you have on the development environment is going to be the same with what you have on the production environment. So you want to go back to your development environment and, you know, do the whatever upgrade you want to do it on the development environment. Then when you are satisfied again, you move it to your UAT environment again for testing, and until everybody's satisfied, that's when you go to the production with the new version.
What about dependencies? So I think you can, so you kind of like illustrated that you can move PowerApps, like Canvas apps from one environment to another. What about dependencies? Like you create a new table in development in Dynamics, in a
Yes.
model-driven app, and you also want that table to go to production. Can that kind of like be bundled up in a like sort of a unit of deployment or something?
So yes, you can. So that's why there's something called, you can see solutions here. So you basically create a solution. So the solution is like a package, it bundles everything up for you. So you create a solution, you go through solution, then when you create a solution, so you basically do everything. So everything you do is bundled up in your solution. So you just move your solution to the next environment and you're good to go. The dependencies will not matter. Everything would have been bundled up in your solution.
Dependencies will follow as long as they're made inside the
solution, correct?
The
yes.
solution and inside the 365 or the Power. Yeah,
exactly. You're correct. So I think that's good for Power Apps. So we can just talk about the Power Automates. Okay. So I'm very excited about Power Automates. I know we have an expert in the house. A minute. I just have to authenticate. So for people who do not know what Power Automate does, just think of Power Automate as a way of automating stuff, you know, automating some of your bombing stuffs. Also, it does a lot more than that. So it also does some very nice stuff, you know, say, for example, you want to get a mail when a certain condition is met. So for example, on CRM, when a case is logged against CL1, for example, would like CL1 to get a mail to that regard saying a case so and so has been logged against you, or you are the case owner for this. So one of the things you can use for that's the the Power Automate. So you can, these are simple flows you just have to create. So when you, I think this is an example of it. So this is a very basic example. This is a basic example of such, the example I just gave now. So what this does is, it says, so you select what environments you want to use. So and the entity you want to use, please note that entity is also called tables now. So for people that have data background, so you think of a table, you know. So you just select the scope. The scope is user, my scope is user. Your scope could be the whole business unit or the organization. And you just match it and you tell it, you know, just send a mail, a new record for so and so was entered today. That's all. So once a case has been created here, once this condition has been met, it triggers the workflow and an email is sent, basically. So those are the simple stuff you can do with Power Automate, but you can do a whole lot of other nice stuff with Power Automate. You can build business process flow with Power Automate. For if you're wondering what business process flow is, what that basically does is it allows people move in stages. So if there's anything you need to do in stages where people have to input some level of information before the next flow happens or before the next before the next flow happens, you want to use business process flow. Unlike the cloud flow or the basic flow here that just starts and you don't have to interact with it anymore until it delivers. Let me see if anyone is interested in that. Oh, okay. Oh, fantastic. Oh, fantastic. Okay. So basically, that's what we do with Power Automate. There are a lot of exciting stuff. There's a page I follow on YouTube. You guys can check them out. They do some of the most exciting stuff on Power Automate. I really cannot remember the name. I think it's not sorry, okay, so Faraz is actually another expert. Okay. So you can check out from, I don't know if you are aware about pragmatic work. So, you know, if you need to learn anything, Microsoft as a whole, I think, you know, they are one of the best go-to people. So they have a lot of exciting videos to train you on Power BI, on Power Automate, CRM, whatever you need to learn. Absolutely. Oh, you're welcome, Elizabeth. You're welcome. Nice to have you here. Okay, I'm not sure I can find it. I wish I could. Okay, I can't find it. So I'll just run us through Power BI, which I always said is my favorite. Maybe I can also show us some stuff I've done with Power BI in the past. So basically for now, I leverage on two things. I leverage on my ability with CRM and my analytics, you know, data analytics ability. So recently I built a report called the, no, this is still not done. We're still working on this. So this is an example of a report I built recently. Okay, so this is an example of a report I built recently for the bank. Basically, the idea behind this report is just to let the bank know what the active cases we currently have on our Microsoft CRM is. So we have you know, different information here. You can see the total active cases we have. By the way, I believe we have the biggest CRM platform in the world in Access Bank. So Access Bank is a very big bank in Africa. We have over 40 million customers. So I think we have the biggest CRM cloud in the world, I think. You know, with 40 million customers. Yeah. So basically what this dashboard does is, you know, it tells us the distribution of our cases. So majority of our active cases are complaints from our customers, a couple of service requests, and, you know, some inquiries also. Also, as far as our active cases are concerned, you know, the large chunk, which is 65%, is not breached. Then we have about 21% that breached within the last 24 hours. You know, a couple also breached in the last 3 days. So, you know, we have to question our customer service, I think. I think our customer service is quite questionable with this information. So one of the things you also do on Power BI is you can, I think if you want to make your work really good, you want to put it in stages. So you want to have an overview page, and then you want people to be able to drill down to get to the basics. So, you know, aside the overview, we have somewhere where you can check out our group performance. Then you can always check if you have a group in mind, you can say business banking Abuja, and then you can see how business banking Abuja is performing. Basically, these are stuff you can do with Power BI, but I will just show you the environment. So this is what the Power BI environment looks like. The environment is special, and I think Power BI is special because unlike other Power Platform, I think Power BI is the only one that currently has a desktop version to itself. So you can build your reports in Power BI right here. You can build to your tastes. It's quite simple to use. If you know how to use Excel and you know how to use what do you call it? PowerPoint. If you know how to use PowerPoint and you know how to use Excel, I think you are, say, 30% good on Power BI actually. Is that drop down you just clicked on a slicer? Yes, that's a slicer. So it's called a slicer. Let me just edit this. So this drop down is called a slicer.
How, if I can ask, I mean, I've worked with slicers before, but I've never seen a slicer with a drop down as an option. Can you show how you configured that?
Okay, let me just bring in data sets here and show you. So you get data. I'll find what Excel. There are 3 ways to present your slicers. That I know of. There could be more, but I like to think I'm correct. I'll just give it a minute. Okay. Yeah, I'll just save this back. Okay, so let me just look at the data set and see what it looks like. Okay, just trying to see if I can find anything that looks different. Okay, so let's make something out of regarding. Let's do something out of regarding. So all you have to do is you select a slicer. Then regarding, you put it in your field. So naturally you'd have something like this, am I correct?
Yeah, this part I'm familiar with.
Okay, so all you have to do, there's a drop down here, just here. Can you select the type of slicer?
Oh, didn't know about that. Okay.
And you'd have a list and a drop down.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think this saves you a whole lot of space, You get to hide it somewhere. So
that's very cool. Thank you.
So that's the first 2 ways to do it. Another way, the last way, the third way. So you want to be on lists to do this. And this can be very cool if you do not have much drop down like this. Say you have just 5, 10. You come here to your formats. Under general, the orientation, you change it to horizontal. So you have something like this.
Yeah.
So when you click, every other thing filters based on this. So it really doesn't make sense now because it's way too much. But imagine you add just say 5 examples there, maybe just 5. Because you have just 5, you can just have them straight on your dashboard. So if people need to see something about a part of the business, maybe HR, they can just click on HR. If they need to see something about IT, they just click on IT. Like it's literally there in front of them. And when every time you click on something, it is highlighted differently. So you know what you're currently on.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Okay, so would you guys like if I could just do like a brief introduction to what Power BI is? Because I know not everybody understands what I'm doing right now. Is that okay?
Yes.
So most of you are familiar with this. I'll just explain the environment. We are all familiar with the paste, copy, cut, and the format painter. Am I correct? These are common stuff you all see on Microsoft tools, all Microsoft tools, I think. So aside from the clipboard, the next thing we have is the data corner. The data corner is basically how we get our data. The data you want to visualize. Where do you get the data from? So like PowerApps, Power BI also have like hundreds, over 300, I think, connectors. So it doesn't matter where your data is sitting. Is it Excel? Is it a CSV file? Is it sitting on your database, your Oracle database, your Microsoft SQL, IBM? Is it something on your Dynamics 365, on your common data service? It really doesn't matter. You can always connect to it with the Power BI. So, these are some of the connectors. So if you can think of a connector, trust me, there's a way to connect. I don't know where your data is sitting out of, but there's always a way to connect, Everything is here. In one form or the other, So you source your data, you just, in my case, I used Excel. So you just select Excel, then you upload the data set into this. So the rest of this is just telling us some of it's just showing some of the common stuff they use. So obviously Excel is very common. Power BI data set would work with data sets that has already been published or that has already been used and is now on your cloud. So you can also connect to the SQL server. You can enter your own data on your own. Like an Excel page just pops up. And I can basically say name, gender, and I can just fill all this. And I can just say Mubarak. So my name is my name is Arabic, by the way. So I can just fill Mubarak, and I think my gender is male, And when I do this, it basically creates a new table. Easy, female. And when I do this, basically, I load and it creates a new table. So it basically creates a new table, That's so if you ever need to add some additional table to your Power BI, you do not always have to go back to your Excel. You can always do it here. That's another thing you can do. So okay, thank you, Brian. It's nice to have you here. So there are a lot of exciting stuff you can basically do, but the plan is you can bring in data and you can visualize it to your taste. You can bring in data and you can visualize to your taste. I had this stuff I did for Kobe Bryant last year. I had this dashboard, a career dashboard I did for Kobe Bryant. So let me see if I can bring it up. Hopefully I can find it on my Twitter page. This is stress. I'm not sure I can remember my password. Cancel. Again. Let's see if that works. Exactly. Second place. Exactly. So I think I forgot my password. So I really should have it somewhere. Okay, I think I found it. So I think another thing that makes your work fantastic on Power BI is you want to have this design knowledge. So if you're very good with design, it helps your work because you always want to maintain a certain level between your functionality and your aesthetics. So you don't want a dashboard that is ugly. You want something that is good looking, that attracts people. And you also want something that meets up with all the KPIs also. So you don't want a beautiful nonsense, basically. So once this come up, I'll just use it as an example. Okay. Just give it a minute, please. Okay, so while we wait for that, maybe I should just talk about the last member of the Power Platform, which is the virtual agent. So I'm not a big fan of the virtual agent. I think it's still developing. I think it's still coming up. I don't think Microsoft is actually a big fan of the virtual agent itself. It doesn't push it enough. I think that's because they are still working on it. So I don't think it's great yet. So basically, what the virtual agent does is a bot. It's a way of building your own bots with very little or no coding, basically. So it's awesome to learn, because you can build your own bots without doing much coding to it. But I think it still has they still have a lot to do with that. They still have a lot to develop. It's not there yet. It's not one of the most exciting bots I've ever seen, basically. How do you spell? Is that the virtual agents? So the virtual agents will be like this. This will be the virtual agents. Okay. Everyone, I think. For the virtual agents. So my accent, my accent has a mix of Africa and Arabic. I'm sorry. So it's quite twists. It's a real twist.
You have great English.
Thank you. Okay, I'm trying to just move this away so you can see what the dashboard looks like. So basically, I did this for Power BI last year, a few days after Kobe Bryant. So I'm a big fan of Kobe. So I just got some of the data sets online, and I decided to just make some visuals on it. So what you see here is basically me pushing out two things. I'm pushing out the user experience. I'm trying to make it as beautiful as possible. I'm careful with my color selection. You can tell the colors they have some meaning. They have not been selected randomly. The colors have been carefully selected, you know. So when you do your report, you want to carefully select your colors. So often when I develop for my company, the colors are carefully selected. You can see I have orange and, you know, this shade of blue, and that's because that's the company logo. Did you see that? So, you know, that's the company's logo. So you want to carefully select your colors, because colors alone can actually make or mar your work. So basically what I had here was the total number of games he played, the total number of points he had, total minutes played, his free throw accuracy conversion, you know, so he had about 3.5%. And, you know, his best performing seasons, you know, based on points scored. I also had like a trend of how often he played. So games started against game played. So obviously in the beginning of his career, he wasn't starting much games until say I think until the 1998, you know. So basically you have that. A couple of other stuff, comparison of the total minutes played and, you know, total points in his last 10 seasons. So basically, yeah, you have a couple of stuff like that. So that's an example of stuff you can do with Power BI. I don't know if anybody has a question.
What was the virtual agent? You said it was a product that Microsoft made that's not ready, or what is?
So it's actually ready. Don't get me wrong. I just don't think it's up there yet.
What do you
So
use
people, I'll show you. I'm not sure. I still have access to it though. Virtual agents. Let me just Microsoft. So it's called the Power Virtual Agents. So it's called the Power Virtual Agents. It's the fourth member of the Power Platform. So it's quite ready, don't get me wrong. And people use it. A lot of organizations use it, but I don't think it's fantastic. That's what I'm saying. I do not think it's fantastic.
Okay.
I just don't rate it. And
what do you use it for?
To build bots. You use it to build robots. So you can then put these bots on your okay, so I think I used all my tryouts. So basically you use it to build bots, then you can then use these bots on your website. So you can just build the bots and you put the bots on your website.
Yeah.
And the fantastic thing about this bot is you can connect these bots to so many other things. So you can connect these bots to your Dynamics CRM, so that when a customer comes, they can actually request about some of the offers you have, and it will just look through your CRM and reply them. So it's meant to be really powerful, but it's not. I'm not so impressed. I'm not so impressed. But I see the potentials, and I think it can be really great in a few years, but it's not there yet.
Okay.
So that's basically my opinion. And I'm sure if somebody here is a virtual agent developer, they'd really argue with me, and that's fine. But that's just my opinion. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's really it about the Power Platform. I'm not sure I showed you around the CRM, so let me just show you around the CRM. So I just use the dev environment, my dev environment. Allows business users to create bots to do things like answer common questions, but requires a premium license to use them. They are starting to be available in Microsoft Teams also as part of, yes, you're correct. So Project Updale is one of the fantastic things that is currently happening to the Power Virtual bots, because I think it's improving the, I think my problem with it was actually how it wasn't so intelligent. So intelligent in the sense that a year ago, if your spellings were wrong, the bot will actually not understand you. So if you spell anything wrong, the bot will probably not understand you. So I think with the project update and a few other things that has been done, I think the bot is more intelligent now. So you can get your spellings wrong and the bot will probably still understand. Yeah. So that was one of the things I never liked. I felt it wasn't always intelligent enough for something that had so much capability, you know. So this is an example of what the Dynamics CRM, the customer service, looks like. So I remember someone had asked the question about the field service and the customer service. Is the person still here? Oh, okay. I think it was the person. So under the Dynamics CRM or the customer engagement, we have a couple of modules. So some of the modules, we have the customer service, we have the sales org, we have the marketing, we have the field service, and they handle different aspects of the business, you know. So this is what our CRM looks like. This is basically where you find me most of the time, doing one configuration or the other, you know. So you can do the configuration directly from CRM here, or you can do your configuration from your PowerApps. It really doesn't matter. So thank you guys. I think we've come to the end. If anybody has a question for me, I really have to go soon. In say 15 minutes or 10 minutes, I have to go. So please, if anybody has a question for me, I'd gladly answer.
I think it was a great presentation. I love the intro with the videos from Lagos. And I think, I mean, I like the format interactive, and you explained things to me that I understand as a computer programmer. I just need to spend more time that I don't have, you know. Unfortunately, I actually have some premium access because and that kind of makes it difficult for me to understand what does the end user have out in the business on the business side. You know, I ended up in CRM because I have a premium license for some reason in our company, but other people don't have access to that. So like understanding, you know, I'm like, are we speaking about the same level of access and the same level of reach, you know, or are we talking about specific features that's only available for certain users that have premium license, and those kind of differences? It's not easy to understand for me.
Yes, so you know your license determines what kind of jobs or roles you can perform. But obviously, for the end users, they do not need premium license. You know, they do not need premium license. So there are lesser licenses that you can get for them that are less expensive.
Is the premium
allow them create and read? You know, mostly they just need to create, read, and maybe share.
Is the premium license across applications, or is that a premium for every product?
If you understand, they do. The license you require to customize or to customize the system is different from what you need to just input in the system and read from the system.
That's kind of how we started out with Power BI in our company. You know, we thought that yeah, okay, you need a license, a pro license to make presentations, but everybody can access everybody can access the presentations without a license, and that turned out to be wrong.
Yes, that's wrong. That's wrong. So you need the what you need is two things. You can do either of two things. One, you could get everybody a pro license and then a premium or a pro for the developers. Another thing you could do is to get what we refer to as the Power BI on-prem server, Power BI on-prem server. Yeah, so the on-prem server allows everybody in your organization to have access to it, and they do not need license.
Yeah, with 300 people, maybe about 100 people use Power BI, and maybe only 20 people use it on a pro license.
So
level.
you probably just you have to consider the ups, the cons and pros. Is it worth getting the report server, or would you just stick with getting the important people the pro license? Thank you, Thomas.